start with that. How's that? That should be a nice intellectual foreplay, and then we'll get into the heavy stuff. Happiness, integrity, friendship. I know last time we gathered here, I had mentioned that we're going to put things on the board, like a map of sorts, that how a relationship between two people like Socrates and Plato, how it starts and how it evolves, and then how it becomes one of attachment and love and devotion, and then one of detachment and separation in a way that doesn't involve grief, and the birth's independence and autonomy and creativity and integrity and happiness, where the only friend you really have is your own intellect and the way you think about things and then express things. But we'll save that for a little bit later. So let's approach Neon's question first, and then we'll go into the other areas. In most traditional cultures, Neon, many parts of Africa, many parts of Mexico, many parts of India, Pakistan, China, it's actually your parents who decide who you should marry. And I think there's a good reason as to why. You know, life is a long, long, long road. It's like from here to, say, Oregon, if you want to drive. Mayon, are you with me? Now, in driving to Oregon, you have a couple of choices. You can either buy a car that's used and has many miles on it. It may have transmission issues. It may have brake issues, various engine issues. And though it may have a great body, a nice glossy paint, there's a good chance that the body and the paint may deceive you into thinking that this is a good car and it's going to run for a long time and smoothly. Hi. Ah, it's good. And so you buy the car for about $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, and you drive. You're about 10 miles into your journey, and you hear this clinking sound, and then smoke comes out. And then you are relatively a good mechanic. You open the hood, you fix a few parts, you put the hood back down, and you continue with your journey. And the car breaks down again. And then it breaks down again, and then it breaks down again. And you know, before you got in the car, you packed, you were looking forward to getting to Oregon, you assumed it's going to be a trouble-free journey, it's going to be a happy one, a pleasant one, that it's going to be a scenic route. But every 10 minutes you stop and you fix your car. And all of a sudden you realize a journey that was supposed to get you to paradise, it's become one of hell. If on the other hand, you had taken your father and you said, Dad, I want to buy a car. And he says, all right, let's go to a dealership. Okay? And he looks at you and says, so son, how much money you have saved? And you say, I have about 10,000. Says, okay, you know what? I'm going to put an additional 15,000 on your 10. That's 25,000. Let's buy a new car. Now, there are no guarantees about anything in life, but at least a new car will give you more of a peace of mind, you see. So you get into this new car and you just drive all the way to Oregon. You have a few stops, but you don't have to think about the car. So your brain space is free. Most people are used up, especially in the 21st century. By the time you're 15 or 20, you have many psychological miles on you. Emotionally, you have traumas inside, you have confusion, you have anxiety, you have all sorts of issues. But you see, when you go out on a date or when you become attracted to someone, you never look under the hood. You never ask good questions. You simply assume that because the person has nice looking eyes or face or body, nice hair, they speak well, maybe they have a couple of degrees, that their engine is solid. And so you know what you do, you invest time in them. And when you spend time with anyone, you create history. And then time and history will eventually equal the emotions. Emotions eventually evolve into this thing called love. And then you, being young and foolish and stupid in many ways, untrained and unrefined, you look at this person and say, I love you. I think we should be roommates. Or worse yet, I love you. Let's get married. You have never looked under the engine. You don't know who the parents are. You don't know what the history is. But that's the hood. That's a tough thing to do. Because when you go out on dates and you spend time with someone, you have to ask difficult questions. And there's a good chance that you may come to realize, there is a story in one of the dialogues of Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates. And when Socrates was crucified by his city, Plato locked himself in a room and just wrote. So in one of his writings, the story is friends of Socrates, or young people who were interested in Socrates and his ideas, knock on his door at 4 a.m. and say, Socrates, come, let's go to the gymnasium. There is this new guy who just arrived to our town, and man, his body is sculpted like the gods. And I don't know if you know the history of sculpture, but the Greeks, man, they did something very, very profound. They were after perfection. They were after beauty because they knew they can't reach gods up there, but they knew that the gods were perfect. They said, let's chisel. Let's get some clay, form it into a shape of a human being, and give it broad shoulders, six-pack. High cheekbones, chiseled jaw like Superman there. Let's give him nice torso, nice biceps, all that stuff. So when people look at this statue, they could be inspired. And that's what they told Socrates, that there is a guy in the gym who is very much like the gods. So Socrates goes in there with his buddies and looks at this kid and says, man, you are right. He is sculpted very much like the gods. But let's go and have a chat with him to see if his mind is as chiseled, as beautiful as his body. And they go and have a chat with him, and Socrates comes to realize that he is hollow. I call myself Persian. But if you knew anything about the culture, and if you were to come to my office and say, Amir, I want to interview you about your culture, about what it means to be Persian, but you come with a background. In other words, you know what my culture is, you know how my people are. And after an hour or maybe 20 minutes, you come to realize, I only give myself the title Persian. There is nothing in it. So Socrates comes to realize that many people look like human beings, but they really aren't. Because a human being is supposed to have a purpose. Talk about dignity, talk about happiness, talk about friendship, okay? So your father again buys you a nice car and you drive. Consider love and the way you and I today form our so to speak, love romantic relationships. See, you're down here, Neon. Okay? You're here. And your life right now is what we call a flatliner. You're tired, you look bad, you smell bad, everything about you is just bad, you're bored. You're not really looking forward to coming to this class or going to your other classes, going to work, going home. But something really strange happens. As you walk out of the class, you run, and let's just say you're a hetero. You run into a nice stick woman. Oh man, she's attractive. Nice hair, nice body. She speaks well. And remember what we said, you have eyes, right? So you look and you say, I am attracted. And being a man, born in Oakland, knowing a few things about how to be a political animal, as you're walking towards here, you were supposed to go this way, you see, but you go up. And then you drop your phone. Not so accidentally. And it just drops right by her foot. And then you say, oh, are you okay? Should I call 911? Are you hurt? And she looks at it and says, no, I am okay. Don't worry. What's your name, you ask? Since I have my phone, maybe I can just put your number. And then you say, let's go have a coffee, walk around a little. And she says, fine. She finds you attractive as well. And then you and her spend some time. Time creates stories. In stories, you have emotions. And little by little, she grows on you. Have you seen ivies? The plant? You put them in the ground, and little by little, they cover this entire room. So you cut that branch for some strange reason, and it grows just the day after. And little by little, what happens is, now remember what happens in dates. So how are you? What's going on? You want to go movie? You want to go to Santa Cruz? You want to go this? You want to do that? So the questions are quite superficial and ridiculous, but for the most part, they're icebreakers. These are like these flirtatious moments that we must all have in order to create some sort of a relationship. So little by little, as your emotions for this woman grows, like ivy, they wrap themselves around you. And one morning you wake up and you say, oh my God, I am waking up at 2 in the morning and the first thing that comes to mind is nay off. That's her name. If you are nay on, she is nay off. Okay? And so you text nay off, I was thinking about you. And nay off says, yeah, I couldn't go to sleep either. Nay on. And then, of course, you go to her at 2 in the morning. You guys have an intense lovemaking session. And you're in conflict. Should I say it to her now? Should I say it to her yesterday? Should I say it to her tomorrow? And then you look at her and say, nay off. And she looks and says, nay on? Nay off. Nay on? What? Nay off. I'm in love with you. And then she bursts into tears and says, oh, nay on. Nay off is in love with you too. See, you were down here, man. Your life sucked. Insignificant, irrelevant, groundhog doing the same thing day after day after day after day. A pathetic little woman named Nayoff walks into your life. You're no longer down here, man. You're on the top of Mount Everest. And the problem with the top of Mount Everest, you can't go any higher. There is no higher peak than the very tip of Everest. Are you paying attention, Neon? And how long did this take for you to get up there? Maybe 2 weeks. Let's just say 3 weeks. Let's be generous. Let's say you're somewhat mature, and let's just give you 4 weeks. That's like real mature. All right? Where do you go from here? There is no higher mountain to climb. Where do you go from here, Nayon? No. I'm going to tell you where you're going to go. All of life begins with attraction, turns into desire, okay? Turns into a want, turns into a need. The moment it turns into a need, you have an emotional relationship to the object that attracted you. The moment you have an emotional need, you are what we call poor. When you're poor, you don't have. What happens when you don't have? It is uncomfortable. It is painful. It is sad. It is sorrowful. So what happens when you're in pain? You pray. What do you pray for? I want Nayof. Why do you want her? You don't have her. And as long as you don't have her, you have this thing called dissatisfaction. And the more intense is the need, the more intense is the dissatisfaction. And the problem with this particular dissatisfaction is the only person who could silence you, satisfy you, please you, bring you happiness is Nayof. Not even Jesus Christ can help you. It's only Nayof. She is your Messiah. She is your Garden of Eden. Without her, you're miserable. Right? So what do? You will do whatever you can. Now this is what we call a desert. It's a desert because without her you are nothing. Insignificant, irrelevant, meaningless, without purpose. She stands here. This is Nayof. And this is Garden of Eden. Okay? You pass through this desert, and it's going to be torturous, man. Right now, your name is Nayon because you think you have power and control over your life. Once you are moved into dissatisfaction, you got no name, and you got no identity. You have no relevance. She owns you. She possesses you. Without her, you are nothing. Your mom says, how you doing, son? Once you go to class, once you go to work, you want some money? Nah. Your friends call, you want to go for a drive? Screw that. You want to do some music? Nah. What do? You just sleep. And you keep looking at your phone. And you keep checking your email. It's like the angels are sending you a message. You keep waiting, but no message comes your way. Do you see? Eventually you get to her. And forget this for now. I'm not going to talk about the desert. That's for a different day. Eventually you get to her. Now, one of the things about love, at least for us in modern times, is it is true, you feel it, then you think it. But there is a very, very important component missing. For this and this to truly come to life, they need your body. Your feelings and your thoughts about Nayof, they need your body so they could actually feel and taste how this is. So you know what your body does? Your body goes and lays next to Nayof. The union is complete. And because this is a new form of intimacy, you're going to continue being in bed with her, taking her out. You guys are going to have a good time. That's your paradise for about 2, maybe 3 weeks. In those 2, 3 weeks, you guys will exercise intimacy maybe 3, 4, 5 times a day. Maybe you'll spend only an hour being parted from one another. Henry David Thoreau once had argued that someone who has dignity and someone who has good friends and someone who's truly happy, their task in life is to suck the marrow out of life. Do you know what that means, Nayon? Next time you have chicken, get the leg, man. Then eat everything. And then you have the bone. Dig into the bone. And in the bone, when you open it up, when you chew it, there is this, it tastes like meat, but it's not, it's marrow. The stuff inside the bone, and it's delicious. But to get to the marrow, you have to get rid of the feathers, the skin, the meat, the bone. You crack it open and then you get inside. That's how difficult it is. See, you have a gift. A 19-year-old kid like you, in a month's time, you were given the marrow. You were given access to a human being as well as yourself, and you sucked the life out of both yourself and this woman. 3 weeks later, something really interesting happens. She says, come over. You say, I want to spend some time with my friends. What? What do you mean? Yeah, I haven't seen Jack, and Jack called me and he just made me feel really bad about the fact that I haven't been around. It's only fair. Okay, so I'll see you later tonight. No, I think I'll be pretty tired. I'll just go home. What? See, you were up here, right, Nayon? There is no higher place to go. The only place you'll eventually end up, you'll slowly come down. You're still with Naof, but now your relationship is no different than your cell phone, no different than coming to class. But here's the mistake that you made. When you were in love, you asked her for marriage. And you thought marriage is going to stay up here. Nah, it's going to come down here. And you know what lives down here? You read the New Testament? What do you mean? You've never read the New Testament? You need to go read the book, just the Gospels, not the entire 27 books. It's a waste of time, just the Gospels. And you don't have to be a Christian for that. You just have to be interested in life and understanding and all that stuff. You know what happens when you come down here? This is called the world of Caesar. It's politics. It's society. It's other people pushing you around. It's going to a job that you hate. Paying rent. And all of a sudden, Naof is down here. Now comes the politics of relationship. You come home 5 minutes late and she says, where the hell have you been? I just had to work an extra shift. After a 12-hour shift, you come home for some peace, man, and she gives you more hell. And you try to survive this. You say, Naof, let's go to our therapist. Her name is Way Off. And you'll try various band-aids to kind of fix this relationship. But here's the thing. Transmission is bad. Brakes are bad. There are no headlights. And here's the thing you need to understand. 99.9999% of the relationships eventually fall into darkness. Anger, confusion, anxiety, stress. And if you ain't got no headlights, man, and if your brakes don't work, you're traveling really fast in darkness. And you're going to say some awful things and you're going to do some awful things. It's what we usually call trauma. And you're not going to recover from this for a long, 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 long time. And then you get married at the age of 20, let's just say 25, 27, it's a done deal, it's finished. This is our modern definition of love and romantic relationships. Look for the color, look for the body. If you don't see any dents, if you don't see any scratches, buy it. Look under the hood later. That's a really, really stupid way of doing business. Now remember, you got to the mountain peak at the age of 18. Now, I'm going to give you a different scenario now. And I'm going to use Satya. Not because of Satya himself, but because of the Indian culture. I'm not going to talk about the caste system, but here it is. This is your mom, Nayan, pay attention. This is your dad. And this is the little Nayan, 25. And let's say this is Naof. So this is Naon, this is Naof. All right? And she is 20. You know who these two people are, Naon? No. These are two single individuals who come together because of love, care, whatever you want to name it. They see you, a poor, innocent, pathetic little animal. They invest emotions, money, time, and ultimately their life into you. You are the carrier of their life. You have kid brother, like 2, 3, 4. When you go home today, give him your phone. What is he going to do with your phone? He's going to throw it here and there. He's going to break it. Right? So whatever you put value, whenever you put value into anything, you try to take care of it. There is a reason why you don't give your phone to your 2-year-old brother. He's going to destroy it. Phones are expensive. You are expensive because of the stuff they put inside you. Do you think parents are foolish enough to simply throw their investments out there in the land of vultures? They realize that you are, say, 20. Your hormones are running wild. You're slowly becoming attracted to the opposite sex. All right? Your mom goes to Lakeshore, runs into this woman. Hello, how are you? What's going on? So, yeah, I have a daughter. She's like 18. She just graduated. Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay. All right. Without your knowledge, your parents have been looking for a companion for you. Now, you're not ready. And you don't need to be ready because the truth is nobody's ready. Nobody is ready for companionship. Very much like nobody is ready to have children. It's an imposition and you slowly begin to learn. So what happens is that your mom looks at this woman and says, why don't you guys come over tonight? Okay. The two of you are sitting. Once in a while, you look at her. But because you come from a culture where shame is very important, dignity is very important, you kind of just take a peek and look the other way without getting caught. And so the father sits to you and says, so what do you do? And imagine the dad says, I'm a porn star. Oh. He goes into the kitchen, looks at the mom and says, come up with an excuse. They need to leave. Why? Because eventually you will become like your parents. You're not going to fall too far from the tree. You are your parents. Why? It's called the formative years. They gave shape to you. The emotions that you have inside you came from these two people. The things you think about came from these two people. What you call pleasure, happiness, dignity, creativity comes from these two people. You watch them smoke every day, you'll smoke. You watch them drink, you'll drink. You watch them shout and scream, you'll shout and scream. Only in rare, unique cases are you going to be somewhat different from your parents. Okay? It's not true for everyone, but most. Now imagine if the father was to say, and sometimes if the parents here are very clever and cunning, they'll go to Safeway and they'll buy some beer or hard liquor. Do you like to drink? Sure. What do you want? We have vodka, we have water. And they may offer a glass of vodka and see how much they drink, if they get buzzed or fully drunk. Remember, you are an investment man. See, if I was to ask you, let me borrow $10 from you, you say, okay, because you know that I'm going to be here, hopefully, on Thursday, and I'll have your money. If on the other hand, a stranger comes out there and says, give me $10, I have no idea who you are. You want to protect your investment. So what usually happens, parents begin to examine each other. What do you do? Who are you? What are your issues in life? Have you been to therapy? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you have any addictions? If things are clear, eventually the two of you, after maybe a week or two, you guys will go into a room in the house, you will chat a little bit. A month later, your mom comes to you and says, I think it's time for you to get married. And you say, Mom, I got no school, I got no house, I got no money, no car. Don't worry, she says, we'll take care of it. If you come from a good background, your slab, your foundation is solid. You can build a house on this foundation. If on the other hand, your foundation is cracked, it doesn't matter what you build, it's going to fall apart. Do you have any questions before? I'm sorry, Satya, I just need to, just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can.
I wanted to bring it up because as you're describing this, and my question is, my parents did not. So there's a lot of my mom's food of the wedding did not come to the wedding. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm contrasting it with a lot of my family. My mom's older sister, and then talking to her. So I'm just thinking about this because it's not, I mean, you're describing it in a certain way.
Right. In many of these arranged marriages, there's a good amount of abuse. First, because it's a male-dominated society and culture. Women don't really have much of a voice. What the man says goes, usually. Women are under the man's tyranny. It's all true. It's all true. There is no denying those things. But the point I was trying to make was not so much about arranged marriages, but the fact that before two people fall in love, what they do is they ask historical questions to make sure that the foundation is relatively solid. Now, there's always going to be glitches in all relationships, and depending on your maturity, how insightful you are, how seasoned you are as a human being, then you can kind of resolve those issues relatively well and healthy, instead of screaming and shouting and walking away. Now, the tragedy of, I suppose, 21st century is that nay on and nay off, at the age of like 25, they have a tiny little kid. Way, way, way off. And once this relationship goes away, what you have is a kid, orphaned.